Hi everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Baz.
And I am spoiling for a fight.
Oh, right, okay, that's Rich. His name is Rich.
Hello.
And he's been a dick already. We've already started, we've only been 3 seconds and he's just been a knob. And the reason he's being a dick is we're going to get right into it straight away. This is our episode where we unwrap our Wrapped, or whatever we call it, for 2023, except it's not the Spotify Wrapped, it's the really important rankings that we've given ourselves.
We are facing the consequences of our own decisions, is what's happening. And I'm already annoyed.
Yeah, brilliant. Over the last 41, now 42 podcasts, we're going to be looking at our games that we have given arbitrary scores for. Now, what we thought would be fun would be trying to announce a winner per score bracket of what we've given games. So it might be a little bit hard to remember what we're talking about here. We will throw up a photo on our socials to show our workings, I'm sure. But yeah, so we're going to be looking at our different score brackets, and we're going to try and, I guess, give a game of the year for each score out of 10. So, 0, 1, 2, yada, yada, yada. And there will be
Did you just explain numbers?
Yeah. Look, I said yada yada yada. All right.
All right. Yeah. It
wasn't yabba dabba doo. Right. So, without further ado, then we're gonna obviously work our way up to the bigger hitters. We'll start down at the bottom, and we will work our way up the scores. I'm explaining numbers again.
You are.
God, you're so angry. You can't wait to get into it.
I'm ready. Let's go. It
would be surprising if we picked each other's games, but also colouring it would be our reviews. There's also random bits in here where we've reviewed games consoles, where we review games we've not even reviewed on the podcast, or we've given scores to games we've not even reviewed on the podcast.
Yep. Also, Shingles is in here.
Also, yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, okay.
Yep. I've kept Shingles in.
Yeah, no, as well. Yeah, I hope so. I want to hear it, and I want to see what that fight's about, because that's going to be quite a tense one, I think, at 1 out of 10.
I don't think this is going to be as straightforward a task as we think it will be.
Oh no, absolutely not. This could last a while. And there's even there's a vote from a cat at one point.
Sunset. What was she thinking?
There's one game, that specific game. It's 3 scores, so I don't know how we're going to work that one out either. But
worry about it later.
Yeah, exactly. that's for future Faz and Rich to worry about. So, but we're hoping it will be a good gaming conversation with lots of fisticuffs in a way, if you will. So I've never fisticuffed anybody.
Right. This conversation has taken a turn.
I'm so sorry. In at 0 out of 10, the only game that didn't get any marks whatsoever was a game that I played for Halloween, Paratopic, the 89p game from the Nintendo Switch. It is the winner of the 0 out of 10 games. The worst game I've ever played and will never touch ever again. I've deleted it from my Switch because I was so angry at it.
Fair.
As of last night, I saw the logo, and I was like, get off my system. Even if you're only taking up about 1 megabyte or something because you were so fucking terrible. 0 out of 10 Paratopic, congratulations.
Well
the runaway winner of 0 out of 10. So, here's an interesting one, as previously alluded to. The 1 out of 10 games are The Sims 2 on the PSP, specifically the PSP version, and Rich's Shingles that he contracted. Do you contract Shingles?
It's like a recurrence of chickenpox.
Yes. Okay.
So it kind of gets reactivated.
Yep.
That was for my 30th.
Okay.
So if we're talking in terms of sheer impact, I would argue that getting Shingles for my 30th birthday had a bigger impact than The Sims 2 on the PSP.
I mean, I've got nothing to argue about that. So we're not doing this to be like, oh, look how fun we are or anything. I genuinely believe that Shingles on your 30th birthday, when you got to sit and watch wrestling videos all the time and saved a bird from under the bath, was better than the experience I had.
It's a hell of a week.
Yeah. Memories. Better.
There was a story mode on Madden 18, right? I played all through it that week, and I can't remember a fucking thing about it, apart from the fact that at one point you basically play 5-a-side.
I don't think that's anything to do with the Shingles. I think that's to do with
the medication.
No, right. I thought it was going to do with the impact of the game upon you.
Yeah.
When you said, there was a story mode on Madden 18, I did not nod. There's a reason. So, But I genuinely do believe that Shingles is better than The Sims 2.
Right.
If I'm going to put my tuppence in there, like, there's no way that on this earth that I had a less painful experience than you playing that game. Like, as in, it just does not work anymore. Like, I need an emulation of the game to see if it struggles so much with the loading in and out of sequences and the understanding of what's going on.
Basically, like overclock your PSP.
But like, I just don't understand that game. Like, as in, so, and I remember now it's bringing back really vicious memories where, like, you couldn't win. You couldn't win that game. That is in your happiness factors or whatever the fuck it was. That is in just they were all your chakras were all over the parish. Like, as in, you just didn't know what was going on. Like, as in, it was so hard to play. And for something that's meant to be fun, it was the antithesis of that, and therefore, if you think about like so Shingle's going to be bad. Shingle's going to be shit.
Yep.
You get them. I feel shit. The Sims 2 is meant to be fun, and it's the complete opposite. So
I really want to make The Sims 2 the winner in this category because it'll annoy you, and I think it annoys you more than Shingles annoys me.
Yeah, probably, and that's fine. I don't mind giving it the winner at 1 out of 10 because it's the only game in 1 out of 10. So fair enough. Do you know what I mean? The game of life, which is Shingles, that is in okay. That doesn't have to win. The Sims 2 can be the winner of the 1 out of 10 game. That's fine.
Cool. Right.
And I feel like it was nice to shout about it again, if I'm going to be honest. Almost like I feel like I've revisited a friend, the friend of fury.
Absolute
fury. I'm spitting feathers.
Doorstep someone and punch him in the face.
I don't understand how something attached to one of the most successful franchises of all time, like, it's like the episode of The Simpsons where, they're keeping the Treehouse of Horror, where they're keeping Bart's brother in the loft, and he's with his fucking fish bucket. And it's just like, that's The Sims 2 to the normal Sims. So, right, let's get into some serious stuff. I've wasted 7 minutes talking about The Sims, Shingles, and Paratopic. 2 out of 10. So, Ridge Racer on the Vita.
Yep.
One of your games.
Yep.
And The Lion King, but your score for The Lion King. I do need to caveat this.
Yeah.
So this was The Lion Skin was part Lion Skin. The Lion Skin.
Jeez.
The Lion King was should have been reviewed. It was reviewed by yourself.
Yep.
It should be scored by me as part of our free play fortnightly scoring. So that score shouldn't even exist. But I will hear you out if you feel like that score should supersede the Ridge Racer score.
Okay.
In the 2 out of 10 category.
I do think that. So Ridge Racer was Ridge Racer in name, and I've thought about this more, and especially playing like the PS2 one, the PS1 one, and PSP as well. I've done some more Ridge Racer dabbling, and all of it plays better than the one on the Vita. The one on the Vita just feels wrong for a Ridge Racer game. It handles in a weird way, and not only that, the way the game is structured is inherently geared towards grinding, never really feeling like you make any progress. And I say that looking at my score for The Lion King, knowing damn well that I made no progress in that. Even when I was fucking cheating, I couldn't make any progress in The Lion King. But at least there is, in The Lion King, an actual game there to get to. Ridge Racer, it's a handful of tracks. You play them over and over again. And I don't mean that in a kind of like Grand Prix mode kind of a way. I mean, it is literally single race after single race after single race with a very limited selection of options for anything. And the odd, interesting piece of window dressing in the menus. And that's basically it. Lion King is an infamously difficult game. However, it looks pretty. So did Ridge Racer. In fairness to Ridge Racer, it does look pretty. But Lion King's artwork is great. We should also mention that all 3 of the scores are for, as far as I'm aware, the Mega Drive version, or rather than SNES.
Well, they were, weren't they? I mean, that's what you played, didn't you? So therefore, that's what they're for. Yeah.
So I think the fact that it's, looking at this, I think it's the only game that appears 3 times in the list.
Yeah. So that was the one we alluded to at the start. Yeah.
And I think there's something in that. that, you know, it can mean so many different things to so many different people.
Yeah, but let's just caveat that to say that one of those people is not a person; it's your cat, and your cat wagged their tail in a like Sunset the cat got a score out of 10, like arbitrarily,
a really high one as well,
but like didn't overwag or underwag.
No,
you know, like wagged.
It was 9 out of 10.
And don't give the. No, everyone, if you listen to the episode, you'd know that. Obviously.
But yeah, I think that The Lion King, like I said at the time, it's the best game I hate. And, you know, the most broken game that I love and all that kind of stuff. Like, it means a hell of a lot to me, that game. Ridge Racer simply doesn't.
Okay, well, I'm really glad that I heard you out. And it's just a real shame that that's against the rules. And my score is the one
that's your rule.
Yeah, the rule
that we brought in after that episode.
No way. What?
Yeah.
No, we didn't. The rule of scoring
each other's things?
Yeah. No, we didn't. Well, it doesn't matter. So
also, you were the one that made the cat give it a score.
Yeah, that's fine.
So if we're talking rules,
so let's okay. Let's split the difference. The difference being that Sunset scored it 9, you've scored it 2, I scored it 5. So it makes sense to me that in between you and your cat, the official score of that.
Hang on, am I going to have to say all this again when we get to 5 out of 10?
No, you don't have to, because it won't win. But it's fine.
Exactly.
It won't win the 5 out of 10. Yeah, but that's okay. So effectively, I get to lord it over The Lion King twice, because I also fucking have the frustration of Lion King from my early childhood as well. I get to lord it over here because it's breaking the rules by being in this section. Well, and and then you will win your battles, don't you worry. But this one's mine, and this one's getting fucking won, right? So Lion King deleted,
you played Ridge Racer?
Deleted, and Ridge Racer for the PS Vita wins the best 2 out of 10 game from 2023. Of living.
And Faz has successfully wasted another 4 minutes of everyone's lives.
No, this is, for me, this is fun. This is
fucking hell. Go outside.
It's more fun than The Sims 2 ever was.
Okay, that is a fair point.
Right, we're starting to get into... Oh God, there's an insurmountable mountain. So this is a relatively simple score bracket, in so much there's 2 games in here. Yeah. But it is a good one because it's a head-to-head. One of my game versus one of your games. It's weird because we're going to be probably trying to pick our own game, or maybe not.
No, we're not.
Because, yeah, exactly. So it's a 3 out of 10 game, and it's definitely not a recommendation. Those 2 games would be Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified for the PS Vita, and Parappa the Rapper, the specific port for the PSP.
Mm-hmm.
We need to decide between us which game we hate the least, and therefore is the 3 out of 10 champion. I mean, you know, I really hated Parappa the Rapper for its inability to actually play it. Like on and the thing that really annoyed me was there was an easy mode.
Yep.
And everyone knows how much of an advocate of an easy mode I've been. The entire time during this podcast, there is no record of me saying that you shouldn't have an easy mode in the game anywhere at all on any episode.
You sure?
Anyway, and it annoys me that you can only play half of that game on easy mode, which is a mode I was able to do. And then you jump up to, inverted commas, normal, and I can't get past the second level out of 6. So... You know, that's my gripe with Parappa the Rapper. It feels like half of the game is kind of missing, and it was definitely a little bit easier on the PlayStation 1. So, you know, that's the thing that I would say for not putting Parappa the Rapper at number 1.
I think by comparison, Call of Duty, you could at least theoretically play.
Yep.
To a point. You know, and I think of all of these games that we have gone through, it's actually probably the one that I have come closest to playing to 100% completion over the course of the week I had with it.
Is that indicative though of the game that you're like
quite?
This is such a basket case and quite straightforward almost. Or...
Yeah, I mean,
there's nothing to it.
Just looking at the list, if you'd left me to my own devices, I would have said Parappa the Rapper. However, the big thing with that is that I've never played that specific port. I'm definitely thinking of the PS1 original. But just from what you were just saying there, I'm leaning towards Call of Duty.
Yeah, I think that. Yep, the words are coming out of my mouth. No,
Right, number 4.
I think that alone your review of that game was excellent.
I will always have fond memories of reviewing it.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed listening to you for like 25 minutes on that. So
Still got that piece of paper somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't burned it. So 4 out of 10. Here we go. We're going to start getting a little bit harder here. We're trying to remember, guys, find our favourite between us in a weird way. Our best game in this bracket. So let's run down what these are then. Star Wars Battlefront 2 for the PSP. Brothers in Arms D-Day for the PSP. Medal of Honor Heroes 2 for the PSP. Metal Gear Acid for the PSP. Football Manager Classic 2014 for the PS Vita. Earth Defense Force 2 Invaders from Planet Space for the PS Vita. Ape Academy for the PSP. And Sega Mega Drive Collection, which is a PSP game, but played upon a PS Vita. Yeah. So, kind of fair spread. Sort of 3 of your games that you played and reviewed, or maybe not so much of a fair spread, but compared to the 5 that I have had. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we've got in there. We need to start crossing these out quick in terms of whether or not we think any of them are worth it. Almost maybe picking our favourite ones out of there. Maybe
I can give you mine easy enough. So I would, in my kind of long list from this lot, I would keep in Star Wars Battlefront 2, Metal Gear Acid. I have fond memories of playing, but weirdly, considering they're 4 out of 10, I think this is a strong field. So
I don't. All
right.
Hang
on, let me finish.
No, I fucking won't. Right, okay, you do your list in a second. All I wanted to say on that point is that all of their source material is strong. Ape Escape for Ape Academy is strong. Football Manager is strong. Sega Mega Drive in general is strong. Star Wars Battlefront, Brothers in Arms, Medal of Honor, Metal Gear Solid / Acid, all strong source material. These adaptations, these ports to the PSP and PS Vita, were weak versions of that. That's all I want to say. It wasn't necessarily colouring anything.
No, but going from that then, I would argue that of that lot, I would go with Sega Mega Drive Collection then, because while it's kind of weak compared to more modern Mega Drive collections you can get, the games that are on there are good. Mm-hmm. They work fine, they play well, and they are classics.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of makes it strong, but I think Star Wars Battlefront 2 would be nipping at its heels.
Yeah, and I think that if I was going to say of any of them, I know some people will be listening to this and going, well, Metal Gear Acid, no, you've probably been a bit harsh on it.
I think it was rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, I implore you to go back, and I'm going to be honest as well, like, at the time I bought 2, and I've heard 2 is better, and I probably will play 2 at some point and review it for the pod, but I'm not looking forward to that experience now, and that's because of the original experience of Metal Gear Acid, and I remember buying the game at the time and not playing very much of it at the time when it first came out, and the sour taste it left in my mouth, not having Metal Gear Solid on the PSP when they clearly could have put it on there in the first place. Even if you'd ported the PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 games onto there, and then it took them a while to get going with Metal Gear Solid as a idea on the PSP and PS Vita. It's not getting in there. I think I agree. I think if we're going to choose between a couple, from what I heard from your review of like Earth Defense Force 2, etc., I think probably Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Sega Mega Drive Collection are fair combatants at the top of the list. My problem with Battlefront 2, what at the time was that just control-wise, and it was very messy on the screen. Like, it was difficult to see on the PlayStation 2 to slim that down into a tiny little screen, and there's a lot going on, and have such a big, massive battlefield slimmed down to the PSP with hard controls was difficult for me.
That's a good point, because when I've played Battlefront 2, it has been the PSP version, but played on a Vita screen.
Yeah.
And I think that probably made quite a bit of difference to how visible it was or wasn't.
Okay.
Mega Drive Collection?
Yeah, Sega Mega Drive Collection. I think, thinking about our roots and who we are and what we like about gaming, I've got no problem with that being the best 4 out of 10 game.
Cool.
What an accolade. Right, so we start getting to what we would say would be recommendations. We're over the halfway. We are the halfway mark here, so we would say
and
that
the lists only get longer.
Yeah, I know, my word. So, but you'd say here that these games are worth playing. I think.
Yeah,
Is that what we're saying?
I think even some of the other ones are worth playing to some extent, just not necessarily worth spending much money on.
You are a kind human being. I
would encourage people to try Call of Duty on the Vita just to see how aggravating it can be.
It was to buy.
Yeah.
So 5 out of 10 then. So Civilization Revolution 2, which was that your score or Fiona's score? Was that?
I think that was mine.
Yeah. So The Lion King, as previously discussed, and we will give it its fair share. I mean, I joked before that we weren't going to, give it a chance, but it deserves its chance. We'll just see what it's like in this field. The PSTV, the vanilla version, you'll have to explain what that means again to people.
Yep.
Because, like 6 people listen to that podcast. No, actually, it was 7. FIFA 09, that is on the PSP. State of Emergency on the PlayStation 2 in one of our free play fortnightly, so you'll have scored that. I'll have reviewed it. Oh, did I? No, I can't.
This is what...
No, you scored it. Echo Tides of Time on a free play fortnightly, and I will have scored that for you. Lego Indiana Jones on the PSP. NFL Street 3 on the PSP. Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits on PS Vita. And EA Replay on the PSP. What you thinking?
What am I thinking? So the PSTV thing, first of all, vanilla is completely as it was out of the box, not getting hacked, so that you can actually play the stuff that you can buy on its own fucking store.
Yeah.
Which normally I wouldn't hack consoles and all that kind of stuff, but when you go onto the store, you can still very easily buy stuff that you can't run on the console without any kind of warning or anything like that, and that's just not right. From this list, Lion King, obviously, I'm going to fight hard to give that its day. Civilization Revolution 2, I'm quite happy leaving off of it. Echo Tides of Time, I have a lot of fond memories of, but compared to Lion King, I think it's Lion King all the way for me. This list, I think, is going to come down to Lion King and Lego Indiana Jones for me. But again, Lego Indiana Jones, I've got a lot of fond memories of it, but that's from the Xbox 360 version.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's that scaling down issue again.
That was one of those podcasts where we were apart because you had COVID.
God, yeah.
And so we probably didn't get our... We had a little bit of a to and fro, and you said some awful things about Lord of the Rings.
Which I stand by.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do that. And die on your sword. But, yeah, I remember it just being very clunky. Again, and it might just be the fact it was on a PSP. Very similar to Battlefront in a way, actually, in terms of just difficult camera angles. The buttons weren't great in terms of how they were laid out and mapped out for the game. And I found it very disappointing for being, I guess, a later sort of iteration of one of the Lego games on the PSP. And I don't know, it just didn't have the same love, or didn't feel like it had the same love put into it as what the home consoles one did. And it just, like we probably talk about quite often, games that are ported over to these consoles specifically, feels like people just kind of went, here's our offcuts. Here you go. Don't worry about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, people still buy it. It's still Lego. It's still Indiana Jones. And they were probably right, but it didn't make it a good game. I would... So you're saying, you were saying Lion King and Lego Indiana Jones?
Yeah, I think...
the game you were trying to give 2 out of 10 before, you're now trying to give 5 out of 10?
Yeah, because I think it deserves to be top in one of these categories, and you wouldn't let me have 2 out of 10, so it may as well be 5 out of 10.
So 9 out of 10 then is The Lion King.
Yeah, if you want.
No, you can't, surely that can't be like... I don't have to go back to 2 out of 10, but I can't give it the top 5 out of 10 game necessary. Well, maybe I can, I don't know, but... Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
This is what I was trying to illustrate earlier. Like, I have a very complicated relationship with this game, right?
Yeah.
Like, I bounce off it so hard, and yet, like, I genuinely, I think if you just tot it up, the number of hours played and the number of times gone through the 1 or 2 levels I can consistently do, I genuinely think it's possibly one of my most played openings of a game of all time.
Yeah.
To the extent that my parents still quote, like, was it Rafiki saying it, or Timon saying it starts back to me, like, still? You know, and it's that sort of thing where, like, I can't understate the impact that game has had on me, despite the fact that I bounced off it when I was a kid, I bounce off it now, and I'm utterly convinced that on some level, at least through the methods I'm trying to play it, it is just fucking broken.
Yeah, you've kind of convinced me a little bit. Like, as in, so I'm thinking about what else is on the list, like, and you know, EA replay. Sorry, you know, I want to cross that out and just put Desert Strike. Like,
yeah.
That's what I want to put there, and that would have more of a chance of winning that category if I did that. If there was less games on that.
That's a very good point.
It's so weird. So like that's out. You know, Desert Strike in, that out. You know, the NFL Street 3 and the FIFA 09. FIFA, it's pretty good. Like, isn't, you know, it's a pretty good iteration. I did have it that, you know, thinking it needs to be in that 5 bracket minimum, because I definitely recommend that if you're going to go back and play a PSP FIFA, it was good. Do you know what I mean? And handling it's really good and things like that. I just will never think that there's enough character for a basic EA Sports game such as a FIFA or NFL. Maybe an NFL Street, maybe an EA big game, but you know, a generic EA game that I think that would carry something in against other games such as The Lion King, which does have character.
Are you going to be talking about FIFA 09 in 20 years' time?
Well, yeah, maybe I will. That's the best FIFA I've ever had. Well, I mean, it probably is one of the better FIFAs I've ever played, which is really sad. But you know, the only one that I think that I could maybe stand up against The Lion King in there is, I don't think the Super Monkey Ball deserves it, just because you sounded very disappointed about its iteration, even though it's a great, again, same as a lot of the 4 out of 10s, a really good source material, but in terms of that,
it is fun.
Yeah,
like, it has its moments. It's just that it's paper thin.
Yeah, okay. It's State of Emergency. That is, and I feel like that was something that I really enjoyed, and I can't remember. I think maybe I said at the time, maybe I did score it, or maybe you did score it. I feel like you scored it. I feel like I would have scored it higher. And I think you gave it a 5 out of 10, and I would have probably slotted it in at the 6 out of 10, which is why it feels like it's at the top of this category in so much. And I sort of said that it was probably the thinness of the progression of the game was a bit silly, but in terms of actual fun gameplay for a few hours, that is in, you know, talk, and if you had your friends around watching you and things like that, that was a very, very fun game. But I'm immediately just going to say I can't get over the emotional traction that The Lion King has. And I have that as well with that game to a small extent, that, you know, playing those first 3 or 4 levels, if it was a good day, 3 or 4 levels over and over again, and the frustrations you get with it. But, you know, Hakuna Matata, my friend. Lion King.
Wonderful phrase.
5 out of 10.
Banging.
Winner. Who knew that was going to happen? Right, okay. Juicy meats arrive upon our plates. So, 6 out of 10 category. Rock Band Unplugged for the PSP. Eventually is in brackets there on our list, because I was kind of teetering towards a 7 on that, but I got talked down to a 6 a little bit. Tony Hawk Underground 2. Ollie Ollie. So that is for, I guess, for the PS Vita in terms of, is that what it is? Near to the system, isn't it? Super Star Wars for the Game Boy.
That was Vita, but it was a Vita port of a SNES game.
Ah, cool. Okay. Atari Flashback Collection for the Vita. Gundamoniums for the Vita. Overboard for the PlayStation 1, and that is called something completely different in America. I can't remember what it's called now, so you'll have to look it up. But if you do look up,
please consult your local.
If you look up Overboard, it will present lots of. You have to put Overboard PS1 game, I think. Little Big Planet PS Vita, FIFA Football PS Vita, FIFA 21 on the Switch, which is Paddy's choice at the time when he came on as a guest. Football Manager 2017 on the PC, another Paddy choice when he came on as a guest. Madden 13, is that PS Vita?
Yes.
Lego Lord of the Rings, as previously mentioned, PS Vita. Need for Speed Most Wanted, PS Vita. House of the Dead Overkill for my Halloween choice on the Wii. And Gravity Rush on the PS Vita, which is very recently reviewed. A lot of Vita in 6 out of 10.
There is, isn't there? Yeah.
I'm not saying you definitely will hold the crown in there, but I think I've only got like 1 or 2 games in there. I will hand the floor over to you in a second. The only game that I think that I would necessarily say holds up as a potential win in there for me was Overboard, and I had an extreme amount of fun with that game.
Yeah.
A very good PlayStation 1 game. Fucking love pirates, as previously said. Even the menus are fun. Really cool, sort of over shoulder view of a pirate ship. As you pilot your way through little mazes and use lots of different fun weapons. The best feature being that as you're set on fire, you're losing health. Your health being that your shipmates are jumping ship, but you can collect them back to keep some health. That's just really fun. So yeah, I thought it was a really inventive game, and I think that I can't think of anything else I've put in there, or that I think is better than that one. So that would be my pitch.
That's your pick.
And you've got about 12 to pick from.
I've got quite a few. I won't lie, there's a couple in there that I'd kind of forgotten that I'd played.
Excellent. They're the winners.
So that's telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think for my picks, actually, I'm not going to do my picks first. I do want to talk about the Atari Flashback Collection quickly, because I think in that review, I mentioned about the Atari 50 collection and how it kind of made me want to play that.
Yeah.
Since then, I have picked it up.
Okay.
And the hype is real. Like that collection is really, really, really good.
Wow.
And it is like an interactive documentary. There's like video clips. There's supplementary material for games that were getting developed at the same time, and you get that context. And it's a large number of, I think, basically the same games, give or take a few, which I think highlights the fact that that collection is solid. It really is. And unlike the sort of home console versions, they are all together. So that's good. But I think if you're playing on modern consoles, it's, the obvious option is to go for Atari 50 and it'll do the same job. But my picks from this, I think Gravity Rush has to be in with a fair shot.
Okay.
Because there's nothing else quite like it.
And it's a good Vita exclusive as well, which is nice.
Well, it's not Vita exclusive anymore. It's on PS4.
But it was at
the time.
Yes.
But the point is that it is the kind of game that I would implore people to go and play, even though we gave it 6 out of 10. Right?
Okay.
I would definitely encourage people to go and at least try it.
We've talked about good 6 out of 10 games.
Yeah, and I think that definitely falls into that bracket. It's the kind of thing that some people will pick up, they will absolutely hate it, and they will never go near it again. Other people will pick it up and they will absolutely adore it, I'm sure. Controversially, the other one that kind of jumped out at me was FIFA Football on the Vita. And I think I touched on this at the time. Like when I think of playing FIFA and that kind of archetypal modern era, that's the one I think of. And I mean, sure, it's from 2011, 2012, something like that. But it's always that one.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's clearly had left an impression on me.
A good modern FIFA.
Modern as in a decade ago, at least.
But there's something to be said for, is there a plateauing flatlining of FIFA and games like that where you kind of go, well, actually,
presentation and physics, I guess, is polishing.
Exactly. So there's no reason why that can't be a winner.
I think for me, this field boils down to Gravity Rush, FIFA Football, or Overboard.
Okay, cool. Can I just mention Ollie Ollie there?
You can.
I didn't want to say necessarily that it was your game and things like that, but at the same time, I've been playing Ollie Ollie World again, just slowly through the year, and I was thinking at the start of the night, I was like, could I fairly throw it in here with a score and things like that? Now I don't want to do that, but I do want to give it a shout out for what an incredible game that is, and you can see the evolution. So I bought was it Ollie Ollie Remix Switch or something like that, I think it is, where you get the first Ollie Ollie and the second Ollie Ollie game for £3 in the Switch store. If that goes on sale again, get that. If Ollie Ollie World goes on sale, which it does every cycle of the sales on the Switch or on all the home consoles, I think I got it for £15, and it's just a wonderful skateboarding game, and it shits all over Tony Hawk Underground 2, and it's funny that the first Ollie Ollie is in the same section as Tony Hawk's Underground 2, and I find Ollie Ollie World would be massively over that. Nothing to do with the conversation, sorry, I just thought it brought it to mind.
But it is a good point, because I think it kind of puts it into that kind of Atari Flashback Collection bracket of...
There are now better games within that series that
exactly
supersede it.
Which actually, you know what? Makes me think that there's a Gravity Rush 2, there are definitely more FIFAs. I'm going to give this to Overboard.
What?
I'm going to give it to Overboard.
You get a freebie? Get a win?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool.
Give
That's awesome.
Overboard.
Do you know what? I didn't want to sort of say at the time, but when I was talking about it right at the start of that seg there, very original. Really
that
original.
Counts for something.
And it's made by Sagnosis, that we've talked about previously, and we'll get onto those guys in a little while as well. That just really brilliant studio. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. You've actually made my night. I don't think I need to win any of the categories. That's great. Well, and I would actually say as well, if anyone ever said to me in my head, the best 6 out of 10 game or the most 6 out of 10 game you'll ever play, that's the one that kind of comes to my brain.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said for that. And yeah, like I say, I think Gravity Rush, looking at that list, would probably be mine. But there are alternatives.
Yeah,
and
I felt some real love when you were reviewing that the other week. That is in or 2 weeks ago, wherever it was. You seem to really enjoy that game and want more for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of putting it. But I'll tell you what finally swayed me in that was the fact that actually for Gravity Rush, the best bits of the traversal, the best bits of the gravity bit, I think you could probably get a similar feel from a good Spider-Man game. Mm-hmm. It's not quite the same, but it would get very, very close.
Okay.
I'm not sure you could quite get the same with Overboard.
Yeah.
Or Overboard somewhere else,
Okay.
So yeah.
Fair enough. So we're getting into dangerous territory now. These are big lists, 7, 8, and 9. And I think there's going to be a bit of fighting for what we think should at least make it down to the last few games.
So this one's going to be difficult.
We've been cordial as fuck so far, which is why I would...
Apart from the Lion King.
I would put that on... Yeah, but even then, it's ended up winning the 5 out of 10 list. It got higher than you would have given it.
That is true. Yeah.
So, and I think we got there through a really natural process of...
bickering.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's look at this 7 out of 10 category then. So, Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PS Vita, the very first game that we ever reviewed on our podcast in episode 2, along with the second game that we ever reviewed, Archer McLean's Mercury for the PSP. Tekken Cross Street Fighter, or Street Fighter Cross Tekken, sorry. Is that a PS Vita game? Yeah.
Yep.
Tekken Dark Resurrection, so Tekken 5 ported onto the PSP. Ridge Racer, the PSP version, 7 out of 10. Dragon's Crown, is that a PS Vita exclusive kind of...
not exclusive, but it is PS Vita.
Cool.
Yep.
And Virtue's Last Reward.
Vita again.
Lumines,
Yeah, don't know.
number 1 for the PSP. Solar Striker, which was the shmup we played live.
Game Boy, no, that was...
was it not? Oh shit, no.
Soldier Blade,
Soldier Blade. Did we put that in here in the end?
No, I don't think we did.
No. I think that you were kind of a bit like, we don't need to give it a score, but...
No, it wasn't the aim of the game.
Okay.
If you'll excuse the slightly later pun. No, Solar Striker was Game Boy.
Okay, yes it was, sorry. Yeah, so Solar Striker on the Game Boy, and that would have been one that I would have scored, I think, for you from your review. Diablo 4, which was something that Kyle, who brought along some NFL and American football chatter and some role-playing dice game chatter for a couple of episodes. He threw in Diablo 4. I don't think he was that bothered about that. I mean, that's not going to win. No. But anyway, so where were we? Burnout Legends, 7 out of 10. That's for the PSP. Pokemon Yellow, interestingly enough, in there. That feels like a big hitter in this category for the Game Boy. SSX On Tour for the PSP. Def Dam Vendetta for Jeff Dam. Damn Jeff for the PS2. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Rich's Review, scoring 7 out of 10. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, scoring 7 out of 10. That was part of the Ace Attorney trilogy, but I only played the first game. And the Game Gear Micro of, I don't know, I want to say fame fortune and glory. Infamously, the strangest little console you'll ever hold in your hand. 7 out of 10.
Not even your whole hand.
Yeah, no, in your fingers, in your fingertips. 7 out of 10. So maybe, how do we do this? Come up with maybe 3 that we think each that we want to throw into the.
Yeah, all right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we need to start probably picking up a couple here, and even if it's sort of a crossover sort of situation where we're like, no, we need that. Right. So just one thing I want to say here. You can absolutely think that it legitimately should be in this section here. I think I want to bat for Mario Kart higher up, but you can bat for it lower down if you want to. Like, as in, it might be that it wins in here. I don't know. But I certainly won't be signing off on that either way. So, or would I? Put it wherever you like, because maybe I would sign off.
Well, I've just spotted where your score is for it later on, so that's going to be an interesting one.
Well, it isn't because just fucking do it, right? Okay, let's do what we need to do. Let's do the thing.
Okay,
let's do the thing.
So, I would always go to bat for Ridge Racer on the PSP, no matter where it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Dragon's Crown and Virtue's Last Reward are both games that I really, really like. Dragon's Crown can get repetitive as hell, but if you're into it, you're into it.
Yep.
Virtue's Last Reward, kind of like what we were saying about Gravity Rush, but even more so, there will be plenty of people that try it and absolutely fucking despise it.
Yeah.
But there'll be plenty of people that would easily be a 9 out of 10 for, even higher, maybe. However, the game that I want to give a shout out to as the most 7 out of 10 and arguably should be higher, I hope she doesn't hear me, is Phoenix Wright. I think my wife would fight hard for that to be like a 9 out of 10. To the extent that I mentioned I mentioned your review. You want to know a response? I bet he didn't even play the actual epilogue episode. I
didn't play.
Yeah, you see?
But why would I though? Because that's not part of the original game.
That is a fair point. So, I'm merely the messenger.
I would have played.
She also said, "Well, if the game is the trilogy, why didn't he play any of the other games in the trilogy?"
Because I was being dragged by my tiny amount of hair that I have on my head for a long period of time through arduous parts of bullshit in terms of investigation. That said, it would also be in the running for one of my games of 7 out of 10 winners.
Yeah,
which is weird, but it is. And I said this at the time. I was compelled to play that game.
Yeah,
but I don't understand my brain around it. It's still shit, but I was compelled to play it.
It's funny because I think for me, weirdly, if Phoenix Wright got the nod in this category, I would almost take that as an implicit nod for Virtue's Last Reward as well, because it plays in a kind of similar kind of a way. But Virtue's Last Reward is going to be more of an acquired taste.
Yeah,
and I completely accept that.
So I would argue Phoenix Wright is also an acquired taste in a way.
Yeah, in a way, but it's much more accessible.
Yeah,
and it's more immediately engaging characters and dialogue.
I feel like Phoenix Wright is, I'm sitting here, I'm chewing on chewing gum, and I've been chewing on chewing gum for 4 hours. So I'm still chewing the chewing gum, and I'm enjoying the sensation of chewing the chewing gum, but it just tastes like rubber now. But I love chewing the chewing gum. I'm not going to stop chewing the chewing gum, but it's not good for me. And that's how I feel about Phoenix Wright, and I can only imagine. So I think I said at the time that scene, the first game is like the 3rd best or 4th best ranked kind of on a lot of lists in terms of Phoenix Wright games. And I'm like, that must mean there's some real shite out there as well in the Ace Attorney sort of like series.
The Ace Attorney verse.
Yeah, Ace Attorney.
I'm gonna do. I would vote for Phoenix Wright.
We've been talking about it a lot. I need to obviously back down from that a little bit because there's some games that I want to talk about a little bit, but so I did have Phoenix Wright in my top 3, but looking at what else I've got in there, so I had SSX on tour for the PSP, and at the time I said that was possibly the best SSX that I played. I think along with sort of 3 and maybe the newest version on the 360, it was just a really well made EA big game, and it just gave me all the right feelings around it, what an extreme sports game should be like, and it was snappy, it looked great, it handled really well on the PSP, and you've probably gathered, I know you have, but obviously listeners as well, the handling and the way that buttons are used on the PSP are vital to how good a game is.
Yeah.
And that is one of those ones that just got it right from EA. So, you know, and I'm overlooking like an EA game like Burnout Legends, for example, that is in everyone sort of says, oh, you know, they have fond memories of Burnout, but that actually feels like it's burned out a little bit in terms of the scoring here. I'm like, actually, no, that falls down a little bit. But we've got Pokemon Yellow sat in here.
Yeah.
And it's not, we're not doing this for other people to have a scoring, that these are our scores and things. But at the same time, like, as in, to not have that at least in the conversation to say that is the best out of all these games that we've played here. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, as in, like, it's just such a good game. Like, as in, and I know it's old and outdated, and there are better Pokemon games now, and even the second generation surpassed it very quickly. But at the time, how, you know, for the age we were at, I would not have put 15 to 20 hours into any other game, handheld, as we spoke about in the last, you know, episode, on a Game Boy, looking absolutely sensational for what that system could do.
Yeah, I take that point. I do. However, if you were reviewing it back then, it would have been a 9 out of 10 or something like that. But this is 2023 money.
Yeah.
I think that's where we get to this point with it, where it's in the 7 out of 10s. Yes, like I've no problem with it being in the conversation. Is it the best game in this specific tiny little
I
list,
put
though?
it to you that you're trying to put Phoenix Wright at number one to correct the wrongs that you think I'm doing upon your wife and your house, your homestead.
I put it to you that you are trying to make Pokemon Yellow the winner out of pure nostalgia and nothing else.
But so I think that Pokemon Yellow would have been cocaine in 1999. It is now like MSG rush that you get from having a Chinese takeaway in 2023. Phoenix Wright is still a good chewing gum. You know
what the worst bit of that was, right? You know what the worst fucking bit was? I understood it. That's the worst bit, right? I know what you mean. Fuck, and it is a compelling argument. Like it is.
Look, and we can go at this for a little while. It's okay. We can take as much time as we want to. Like, as in, these are hard lists that we're coming up to. We don't have to be like, oh, we'll have to crack on. Like, this is a difficult decision. I get that. And it shouldn't be one of us battles the other one down to being like, like, you're wrong. Look, right. And we're not doing, I don't want to do a sort of tit for tat. Look, you gave me Overboard in the 6 out of 10, but I mean, like, we've talked about Phoenix Wright a lot.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like,
that would leave me with a bitter taste in my mouth if that was a 7 out of 10 game.
Would it?
Yeah, it really would. It would leave me. I'd need more chewing gum to get rid of the taste of leaving that as our winner in there.
Okay, all right. Let me just try this on, right?
Okay,
and see how it sounds.
That's cool.
I am not committing to this statement I say, right?
This is us.
Okay. Phoenix Wright is a better 7 out of 10 game than Pokemon Yellow. Yeah, it doesn't sound right, does it? What are we doing? It's Pokemon Yellow, right?
I don't get it. I don't. Yeah, no, it's not. Like, the games that I've had I've enjoyed more games in that category than I enjoyed Phoenix Wright. It was just different. It was just it was something different. And do you know what? I think that actually, let's do the flip argument of, if I'd have played that in 2001 or 2003, whatever it was, and I'd have been, like, is in 15 years old or something like that, I'd have thought it was really shit.
You'd have been bored.
Yeah. Whereas in 2023, actually I was like, oh, this is kind of a bit more my jam. Like, that's probably what it was, I think, really. But I don't think it supersedes, so if someone said to me, you have to now play Pokemon Yellow or you have to play Phoenix Wright, like the same amount. You could finish both those games in 15 hours. You're going to feel like you've progressed a hell of a lot more through playing Pokemon
That's
Yellow.
True. Yeah.
Even if you've only caught 81 in the Pokedex.
All right, let's Pokemon Yellow.
Cool. Okay, that's fine. I think we hashed that out pretty well. I don't feel like I've done a disservice to.
I mean, people are going to be more annoyed that we only gave it 7 out of 10.
I don't know though. I think that a lot of conversation.
A dozen of people who listen.
Yes, exactly. I don't think that there was plenty of argument there that maybe even if it didn't convey itself when you were reviewing that in the first place, I think that probably. Came across there that it was probably a fair result. Yeah. So, cool. Right, okay. Right. So, should we take a quick break before we get into 8, regroup. 9 and 10? So, hopefully we'll have a couple of sort of special speakers when we get to our 10 out of 10 category. There are 4 games in our 10 out of 10 category. 1 for you, 1 for me, 1 for Paddy, who came on the podcast, and 1 for Hakers, who came on the podcast as well. And we've asked them to give us a little bit of a blurb about why their game should win, and we'll listen to them as well. So, coming up, 8, 9, and 10 out of 10 games of the year. So we're back, and we've just finished our top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers again.
Yep.
Out of 10 games of the year. So just to give you a quick reminder of where we've gone so far: Paratopic 0 out of 10. Shit. 1 out of 10. The Sims 2. 3 out of 10. Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified. 4 out of 10. Sega Mega Drive Collection PSP/PS Vita. 5 out of 10. The Lion King on the Sega. 6 out of 10. Overboard on the PlayStation 1. 7 out of 10. Pokemon Yellow. Good list so far, I think. I think we're doing all right.
Pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that's not so bad. Right, okay, so tougher decisions lie ahead. I think that this is so hard. Like, we've left ourselves with some big lists around 8 and 9 out of 10. 8 probably I think is the hardest. So let's get straight into it. Mercury Meltdown for the PSP, the second of the Mercury games. I'm not being shady about the 7 out of 10 of Archie McLean's Mercury, but I knew Mercury Meltdown was in this next list and coming up. Do I think that it's necessarily going to win the list? I don't know, but I know there was a version in there. Ridge Racer on the PSP for Rich. So, interestingly enough, you reviewed Ridge Racer higher than I reviewed Ridge Racer for the PSP. God of War, Chains of Olympus on the PSP. Steam Deck from Hakers, 8 out of 10. So the actual console, the new version that we got our hands on, which Hakers brought around for us to play with. Grim Fandango on the PS Vita. Obviously a port from previously. Was it a remastered version? Was it or just a?
I think it was a little
fandangoed.
No, I think it was slightly. Yeah.
Lumines 2 and the remaster we've got here in brackets. So that was the PSP game, but also thrown in there for good measure is Lumines Remastered on the Switch. And that were the reviews from me. Darius Burst, I can't remember, we never worked out, did we? Chronicle Saviors for the PS Vita. Little Big Planet on the PSP. Metal Gear Solid HD Collection on the PS Vita. The PSTV Hacked. Muramasa Rebirth on the PS Vita. Turnip Boy commits tax evasion on the Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass. Dangan GB on the Game Boy. Football Manager 2005/2006 on the PSP. Madden 08 on the PSP. Guacamelee on the PS Vita. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 on the PSP. Ace Combat 10 or X, I think it is 10 X on the PSP. And the MetaQuest 2, the actual console itself, and that was from Aaron, who came on the podcast to talk a little bit about handheld MetaQuest and beers. So, big list. I guess we're probably going to run the same sort of system of trying to whittle it down a little bit. I think this might be harder to whittle down in our heads, though, because, I mean, what was there, about 15-ish there, I think it is. So, sort of maybe top 3 or 4, we kind of have a little bit to think about from our own point of view, or if it's something that we think actually, we would say the other person got that really right. I mean, obviously, personally, just to kind of get rid of a couple here, and I don't want to say that you can't say this, I then therefore wouldn't have Ridge Racer in my 8 out of 10 bracket. I did a 7 out of 10 bracket, and I didn't even get that into the conversation there as a top 3 in that. But that's not to say that you can't have it here. That's just one bit of my thought process. What about the consoles that are in here? The Steam Deck, the MetaQuest 2, and the PS TV. But the I don't want to say hacked, but the version that you've opened up to the world a bit more.
It's not even opening up to the world. It's just
opening up to its own system.
Its own store.
Its own store.
So yeah, that's kind of the only one out of this set that I've actually got any first-hand experience of for longer than about 10 minutes.
You played that trucker game on the Steam Deck.
Yeah,
you loved it.
I reversed in and out of a car park in Budapest.
Yep.
In the rain. That was it. That was what I did.
You said that.
And even then, I think I nearly crashed.
You looked at me like you were Ethan Hunt there.
There are some similarities.
Yeah. Just Hunt rhymes with.
So I've no great desire to keep the consoles in, personally.
No.
I think they are quite easily gone.
Is there a reason that we would think... I feel the same, but is there a reason we feel that same about that? Is it just because we just want to get down to software chat?
For my part, it is literally lack of using them myself.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I can't really... not to take anything away from the scores that people that have come here and given them, because obviously they're much more familiar with them than I am.
Yeah.
But I think for the purposes of this bit, I'm going to have to back myself.
That's fair enough.
I think I've got my shortlist.
Okay, really?
Yeah.
Go with that,
then,
really, because then that might inform mine a little bit better.
Might buy you some time.
I'm paddling furiously towards the shore and struggling.
I think this is a much easier decision for me than you.
Ah, okay. That's nice to hear.
I'm going to talk out loud. I'm going to think out loud. Talk out loud? I'm going to think out loud. But I think I know what my pick is going to be in this one.
All right. Well, why didn't you say it?
Well, because I need to get there first. I need to actually hear it.
Just fucking say it.
I need to hear it. I need to think about it.
I need to hear it. I need to talk out loud.
Wait a minute. So Dangan GB is not going to be in that running.
Okay.
But I do want to pick it out because, as far as I'm aware, it's the only thing on the entire list that's a homebrew. Mm-hmm. So I think,
to score 8 out of 10 is
well done.
Excellent.
Yeah. Like it really is good, and the fact that you can it showcases what a Game Boy can do.
Good work, Dangan.
Exactly. I am ignoring Metal Gear Solid and Little Big Planet completely.
Right. Okay.
They're just not jumping out at me on this list. Right. Darius Burst Chronicle Saviors, I genuinely think might actually be the best shmup on the Vita if you are only playing Vita shmups.
Yeah.
Right? However, as we've seen, you can play PS1 ones. There are ways of playing some from other consoles and things like that. So it's really, really good. But is it the best one on the console? I don't know. I think it's possibly got a shout. However, the two that I'm dancing around in my head are Grim Fandango.
Okay.
Because that is legitimately a classic for a great many reasons, and there it is in the palm of your hand, and you can play it whenever, and wherever. The one that I keep coming back to, and that I think might be my pick for this list, is Ridge Racer on the PSP. Genuinely, I think for all of the racing games on the PSP and the Vita, I think that might be the one that I've played the most, and that I picked that up off the back of those reviews that we did. I went and I bought Ridge Racer on the PSP, and I bought Ridge Racer 5 on the PS2, and I've played both of them way more than I ever played that Vita one.
Yeah.
The PSP one, I've only got it on the PS TV, but I think I've genuinely spent the most time with it. There is just something about the way that game is put together and the handling and the style of it. It just hits that really nice sweet spot for me between the kind of more modern version with the kind of drafting and the nitro and stuff like that and the arcade racing chops, and the sort of style of the older ones. Like I played a bit of Ridge Racer 4 and all that kind of stuff, and like the kind of sleek style of it and all that. but I was less of a fan of the game. The Ridge Racer 5, leans a bit too far towards the arcadey thing, and it's pretty and it does its own thing. But
Yeah.
the PSP game, I think, hits a real sweet spot for me when it comes to arcade racing as a genre.
Okay. So, I'm not going to be facetious and be like, oh, you can't have it because I don't think it should be in there or whatever because I put 7. Like, as in, I guess my concern with the Ridge Racer game at the time and was in 2007 or whatever it was and is today, it's very shallow. There's that is in so I completely hear what you're saying about the handling and the way that feels like an arcade racer in terms of, and it's really well presented. But when I spent 45 minutes with that game, I felt like I was done. Like, as in, like, not in a bad way, not done as in, like, exhausted or anything.
No,
I was just
seen everything.
finished. I was just finished.
So the thing with that is that that's arcade racers full stop a lot of the time. Like, are you honestly going to tell me that Mario Kart has more depth? Because I don't think it does. Honestly,
you get
straight
more.
up.
You get more characters, more carts. Like the tracks have way more variation to them.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
I mean, visually, sure.
Okay, but
mechanically,
yeah, surely.
But if you're talking about a game being shallow, surely it's the mechanics you're talking about. Because I mean, like, it's a racing game. You go around circuits.
Yeah, but you go around. But think about, like, in Mario Kart where you have, right, you've got F-Zero tracks, and I know that was an argument of yours to say, well, that's not a Mario Kart thing, but you
go play an F-Zero game.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like, even, for example, the Animal Crossing track, where every time you play on it, it's a different season.
All right,
that has got more variation.
That is fair.
I'm not being so reductive to say that one track has more variation than the Ridge Racer game, but it kind of does. Like, as in, it's like...
that's a fair point.
Do you know what I mean? And, like, I get what you're saying. The mechanics are very pure, and there's something very crisp about the Ridge Racer.
Crisp's a good word.
It feels like a very sleek, lovely, stylized game. I just think that you look at everything else that's in here, and at the same time, am I throwing out something that I'm like, that is my surefire batter? That I'm like, yeah, no, that one, like, wins, like, as in compared to Ridge Racer. I could throw any of them against it and feel like I had a good argument. But am I, like, thinking, that I've got a super uber hero in here? Not massively. Like, isn't the God of War game, for example, like, as in, I don't know what it is. Like, as in, everyone loves God of War games, and everyone, and they're very well reviewed and structured and things. This one was it was a very, I would say, a quintessential pocket experience. And it's one of those games that I played happily to completion. Felt a little bit sort of longer towards the edges and stuff, but it was a bit of a one-trick pony as well. It was dungeon, same moves, same moves.
Yeah,
that is in, like, it was just very well done, and that in my head feels like a quasi Ridge Racer. It's in, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's in same thing, really well done. Whereas something like, for example, like Turnip Boy evades tax evasion, that was one of the best hour and a half of my life. Like, as in, like, as in terms of gaming life, like, as in, it's just really wonderfully well done, top down Zelda / Pokemon riff kind of thing and stuff. And that it was just different. And I guess that in the same name we spoke about, the last sort of section, we talked about some games that are maybe a little bit different. Like, I feel like I just need a little bit more flair and pizzazz than just a straightforward Ridge Racer.
Something a bit auteurish. Yeah.
It doesn't have to necessarily be auteur, but I mean, I'd rather you were erred towards Grim Fandango, which, hearing you speak about that, and Haker's touched on it a little bit as well and stuff and things like that, but you don't look set on that either, like, in your head.
No, I'm not. That's the thing.
It's really weird because I'm looking at this list and going, this is a really good list, and also nothing kind of jumps out to me, and I'm like, that's the one that I
Yeah,
want.
it's weird, isn't it? Because it is like simultaneously great and also kind of a bit humdrum.
Yeah,
Because like you say, like with Turnip Boy, that's exactly how I feel about Dangan GB. And you know that it's ended up in the 8 out of 10 section for a reason. You know, and I haven't even talked about Muramasa Rebirth. But I mean, like that. But again, like it looks great. There are some interesting mechanics, but it's a side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Yeah.
You move to a side and you beat things up.
So if I, so sometimes I'll listen back to our podcast because I'm vain like that. No, but like also just to kind of like get a little bit of a right. What have we said previously, sort of thing. Do you know, as in, especially for this, I kind of listened back to a couple of podcasts here and there, and that was one review that I was a bit like, I didn't hear the love necessarily. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, it sounds like a great game, but I wasn't like you were. You didn't sound like you were in love.
Yeah, I was playing that, but I was thinking of Dragon's Crown. You know, like, that's exactly what it was. Like, it was just like, yeah, this is great.
You dog,
like,
dog.
I like Vanillaware's, style and approach to things, but I think it kind of coalesced best in a slightly objectively worse game.
Yeah, fair enough. That's it's funny to like that they are in 7 and 8 out of 10 and they feel like very interchangeable. The two things that stand out for me in terms of, I was going to, now I've sort of said, I don't know if there's necessarily anything there. Like, Lumines and Mercury Meltdown, again, they're very specific things that I think that, while Lumines is obviously a bit of a Tetris-y sort of riff, like, I could see how very addictive that would be. And almost speaking, as I spoke on the last podcast about Tetris, and I was thinking, how much can someone get stuck on something and be like, this is the thing that I want to play ages and ages, and it's just moving bricks around. That was very much a, wow, the remaster on the Switch, bloody brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in you could sit and play that on that console for hours, I think. And then Mercury Meltdown, like, that was one of the first games on the PSP that I really truly thought that, in the same fashion, I'm like, this puzzler is just wonderfully puzzling. Like, as in, I want to live with this for a long period of time.
It's funny you mentioned that, especially about Lumines, because again, off the back of that review, I went and picked it up on Switch. I bounced off it so hard. I think I played it for maybe 20 minutes and was like, yeah,
that's weird, isn't it?
I'm good.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's
a fair feeling to have, though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I think what kind of, back in the day, you go, find demos or whatever and stuff like that, which is, I guess, trickier to do nowadays, or you'd rent it, and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it's the fun of it, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's funny that we're not mentioning sort of franchise games in here, like Football Manager. Yeah. That Football Manager on that PSP is legitimately the best Football Manager I think that I could have played since probably an earlier version. I mean, but I wouldn't be throwing it up as like the best 8 out of 10 game out of this list. Madden, that 08 version of Madden on the PSP is very good, and SmackDown versus Raw, the wrestling game it was very in depth for a PSP game. Like, as in, for a
well, I loved the
THQ
Xbox 360 version of that. Like, I really enjoyed it back in the day.
I mean, mentioned Days Combat, thinking that was like something again that is a sort of a jet flight sim. That was great.
I'm looking at this list, right? I'm
I love that we're at pains to not pick something.
Well, it's not even that. I think what's bugging me, right? I think I've worked it out, and I've just Googled it to see if I can pin this down. I think what's bugging me is that I have this really bad feeling that if I'd actually played Turnip Boy, it would be the easy winner in this category.
Really?
I genuinely think that because I think you hit the nail on the head, where it's like, that is the only thing in this list that does what that does.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think, kind of like we said with Overboard, that there is something to be said for that. And I've got this really bad feeling that I've somehow missed a trick by picking up Lumines instead of Turnip Boy, But
you can always go back and get it.
Oh, I'm going to. That's what I was just doing. I was putting it on my wish list. Like, not an idiot. I will give it to Turnip Boy if you are in agreement.
I mean, I am.
I'm basically struggling to think of a reason not to.
Yeah, I am. I feel like I've ripped Ridge Racer away from you, and I feel bad about it, but
I've still got my 2 out of 10 Ridge Racers in there.
I feel like it's good reason with that. Yeah, let's do it. I feel the more you spoke about it, it felt like I had that good gurgling feeling in my stomach. Like you were saying about having a bad feeling not playing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel very satisfied with myself that I've played that game.
Okay.
And it's such a nice, quick, breezy, you like just blast it out in one, 2 sit-ins and you're like, yeah, that's great. You know what I mean? Really fun.
All right, let's go for it. Let's do it.
I hope that you have a wonderful time with it. If you don't, then Lord have mercy on my soul.
I won't tell you.
Right, 9 out of 10. I think this is the, obviously...
I think this is the trickiest one.
I also think this is the best little games that we've got here as well. So, Papers, Please on the PS Vita. And that was reviewed in episode 3 by Rich. Gunstar Heroes. Now, that's not a game that we've played or reviewed on the game, but we've talked about it.
Yeah, that was from when we went to Slam Dunk and kind of gave our favourite games.
Yes.
So, but yes, you're right. It's a personal favourite, but it hasn't been officially reviewed.
No, but that's okay. We asked, we put a score in for it. It's in there. Wipeout Pure for the PSP. Wipeout 2048 for the PS Vita. Persona 4 Golden for the PS Vita. Metal Gear Solid 3, and that was put in there as one of my favourite games.
Slam Dunk as well,
that was Slam Dunk. Again, not played, but it was one of my favourite games. The Lion King, Wagged a Tail by Sunset. I think that's probably likely that won't be in there.
Not putting the cat's score for The Lion King.
Everything about my human being wants me to be that. But anyway, so the Razer Kishi, the handheld add-on to my phone that I bought from Amazon, is in there. Outrun, which is the Sega Ages version of the Switch for... I don't know if I said Switch, but for me, I reviewed that, and that was 9 out of 10. I think you give it the score, though.
Yeah.
Super Mario World for the Switch. So, obviously, the original being on the SNES. And that's 9 out of 10. I also put the MetaQuest 2 in there as well. As a console. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, 9 out of 10. And Daxter, very recently for the PSP, as the best platformer that I've played on the PSP, 9 out of 10. So, if we think about who our soldiers are in this battle, you've got Papers, Please, Gunstar Heroes, Wipeout 2048, Persona 4 Golden, and that's kind of yours there. Mine, I'd say my batters. Look, so people I'm going to put up for fighting here. I'm gonna surprise you here and say the same as what you said about your 8 out of 10, and probably work down from it. You kind of went from Ridge Race and backed off a little bit. I've got a couple in my head that I'm thinking they're the ones straight away. They're the ones, So I'm thinking, and this will surprise you, because one game that I think that we've already spoken about, you think would be in there, but it's not. I'm going to say that I've got 3 that I'd offer up there. Wipeout Pure, Super Mario World, and Outrun. Now, Mario Kart's not in there. And that won't surprise you from your own personal feelings about it, but it might surprise you about my personal feelings about Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that is the version. Do you know what? And out of those things, I feel like the one I've played the least amount, or maybe probably joint least amount, Outrun and Wipeout Pure. I think Outrun, I still haven't got past the second level, like on Outrun. But it's living in my dreams. But it's sat there at home on my Switch. I haven't touched it in months, but I think about it regularly. It's like the moment in Wayne's World where Garth has always got his dream woman. Oh, dream weaver. That's what Outrun is to me. It feels like I want to reach out and touch the perfect arcade experience. I think that's going to be my one that I'm putting up.
Okay.
But you've got a really good selection there that I'm jealous that I've never played.
So I can whittle mine down surprisingly easily.
Okay.
I think. Lion King, as scored by the cat, obviously not going in the run. Obviously, it's not.
Sunset, no! Ah!
Gunstar Heroes, I feel like I can't bat for it because I haven't officially reviewed it. That said, I cannot encourage you enough to go and play it. I fucking love that game.
Is that the Sega version?
Yeah. It's really frustrating to hear you talk in such glowing terms about Outrun when I would argue that Ridge Racer on the PSP has more depth than Outrun does. Different era, I know, but
that's really funny,
nonetheless,
isn't it? Yeah,
I take your point.
Don't
Make
me feel bad.
No, but I think if you're talking about like
we can talk about it
mechanical depth versus trappings and all that kind of stuff, I would argue that Outrun, on your criteria, would be the shallowest fucking game
I've
ever.
still not completed Outrun.
But still.
Whereas I can complete Ridge Racer in minutes. Whereas Outrun keeps me coming back for more.
I don't think you completed Ridge Racer.
Probably not.
Without, casting too much shade.
No, probably not.
Having seen the menus I've seen.
But didn't I?
In spirit, maybe. I think the ones that jump out for me in this list, I would put a Wipeout in. However, in my head, I know I spoke about them in glowing terms. The problem was that off the back of that, I went and picked up the Omega Collection on the PS4. Now, for me, that is the
ultimate,
Wipeout, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think of.
Again, jealous of you playing that game and me not doing that yet.
It's a bit good. Papers, Please jumps out. Like we've been saying, it does something different. It's the only one that does what it does on this list. And it does it really, really well. It's also the only game that one of my reviews has, as far as I'm aware, persuaded anybody to go out and buy it.
Yeah.
Which I take as a compliment. I think it's got a good shout. Super Mario World, is obviously and rightfully so a stone cold classic. I'm not going to take that away from it. Obviously, I'm not. Weirdly, and I think I had the same thing subconsciously when I saw Pokemon Yellow a little earlier on. In my head, there's this little switch that's going, yeah, but Super Mario World doesn't need this win, which is utter. It's insanity.
No. I get that. It makes sense. I mean, the same time, I would say, and no one ever speaks about it, and I said this at the time, and I say people do speak about it, and they usually say the opposite. It's too fucking hard. It is too hard to know what you're meant to do in all the mansions and stuff, and everyone's like, oh, well, actually, Super Mario 2's harder and stuff, and I'm like, well, yeah, fair enough, it might well be, and the lost levels might well be, but it still doesn't make Super Mario World any easier without ringing a fucking Nintendo hotline that doesn't exist in 2023. Oh, no, well, okay, fair enough, I'll go on the internet, fine. I'd like to have rang the number at some point in my life. But yeah, I think that there's definitely something that holds that back from me from being in the 10 out of 10 category, which, and actually still holds it back a little bit here from even being the champion of the 9 out of 10 category for me.
Yeah, and I think what's weird about looking at this list in isolation is that there's something like that with each of these games I can point out and go, yeah, but that's why it shouldn't win. That's why that one shouldn't win. And because I'm looking at Metal Gear Solid 3 right now, it's like, yeah, it's great, but at the same time, a bit mechanically clunky, maybe a bit overblown.
I'm probably a bit saturated in Metal Gear Solid 3 at the moment. There's a lot on the internet from the remastered, whatever it is, collection, and then obviously with the Delta version coming out soon, I don't need to think about it being. I need to see the remake and see how good that's going to be for me. Almost see how good the original was.
So I think for me, really, much as I love Gunstar Heroes, and I really do, I think ultimately this particular section is coming down to Papers, Please and Outrun. And when I look at them, and it's been the case since I saw it written on the fucking page, there has been one piece of music playing, and that is from Outrun. Like, and it's just on a fucking loop in my head, that fucking magical sound shower.
Really funny. I really want Papers, Please.
Oh, shit.
So we're almost batting for each other's game now, although obviously, like, you will have played your probably fairer share of Outrun than I have, probably. But yeah, there was something magical about your review of Papers, Please, and even I got to spend half an hour on that game on your console, and I could see the appeal of that game. And much like Turn It Boy, but turn it up to 11, like, and just think that it was just, yeah. That sometimes there are just games that just blow your mind and think this is just like a simple thing, but someone just put it together and made this fucking thing work, and like that feels like it for Papers, Please, but. Obviously, I did say, like I have got an unhealthy obsession with thinking about Outrun at night. Just like...
Yeah, and it's funny as well because I'm looking at this and I'm like, but we don't have any arcade things in there yet, which is like not how we should be looking at this list, Richard. But
it would be a healthy winner as well.
Well, granted, yeah, but like, it's the sort of thing that here we are. Talking about Outrun from however many years ago, Papers, Please are we going to be talking about it in however many years to come, or not?
Hopefully so.
Well, I mean that's not even my favourite game from that particular developer, Papers, Please.
Well,
so like,
sorry, it ain't on the list. It ain't coming in.
Well, yeah, no,
that's who's playing for you.
Yeah.
So we're agreed. It's Lion King by Sunset's Review.
No, I think it's Outrun.
Yeah,
I think it's Outrun.
If that's sort of your gut.
Yeah, I think it is. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, yeah, like that's. Yeah,
that's really great.
I think I am comfortable with that decision. I'm doing it. I'm putting.
It's really interesting because when I first started speaking about my list, I didn't think it had a cat in hell's chance. Of being the one in there, but yeah, man, like
it's arcade purity.
It really is. And some things just, I'm not saying this sounds weird or anything, but some things just touch you in a certain way that certain medias and stuff. And I've just, in the great scheme of my life, I've played that game fleetingly for probably about 6 hours, I would say, and and you just think back to it and go. Just well fucking done. That's it, like
lightning in a bottle and other cliches, but also I what I like to think looking at this list is that there is definitely a lean towards like that kind of purity of gameplay. Really,
yeah.
And I think that's why Papers, Please had such a strong shout, and I think that's why a lot of the ones that we did talk about in the 9 out of 10 section had a shot. Super Mario World again would fall into a similar category, I would argue. Gunstar Heroes, I think, as well for what it does. But I think it as the shining example of it, I think it's got to be Outrun.
Even just not to labour the fact or anything, but you look at sort of the purest things that Nintendo have done. Your Super Mario World and your Mario Kart, like as in sort of things that they've just franchised forever because they just know that they know what to do with it. Daxter, the gameplay, feels like the best platformer that I've played on the PSP. Is it there? It wasn't there to win it because the story is. I wasn't drawn about the story, but like the purity of that gameplay, like you say, it's there. So no, that's cool. I'm really glad we came to sort of some sort of way around that
understanding.
Yes. So our final category, 10 out of 10, 4 games. So Loco Roco for the PSP, which controversially was not played for this year, but I said it when I was at Slam Dunk as part of my sort of feeling of best games I've ever played, potentially, and I gave it a 10 out of 10. At the time, I was like, oh yeah, fuck it, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I will come back to that. You've got...
Maybe we should do that in the new year. You do Loco Roco, I'll do Gunstar Heroes.
So, I'm not going to play Loco Roco. I'm going to play Loco Roco 2. Because Loco Roco 2 is meant to be better than Loco Roco. and I've never fully completed Loco Roco 2. So I would be intrigued to see whether or not that would hold its own and sneak up into the sort of 8s, 9s, and 10s. We will see. So I think that, it's quite obvious really that I don't want to sort of say that, is it obvious? Look, Loco Roco is such a good game. When I think of playing on the PlayStation Portable, I think of playing on Loco Roco at all times. I've got all these other games that I've played and enjoyed, and many games have scored highly, but I just think that is what this system was built for. The little tilt system, your left and right, in terms of your shoulder buttons and things, the audacity that you have no other function with this, this brand new system. You're like, oh, here we go. Wow, I'm going to play this really powerful handheld. Oh, what am I looking at? Some blobs. And rolling down a hill, and I'm just tilting it around. But visually beautiful, just everything about it in terms of the way that it moves. And it's so reactive to your touch, even on those just 2 or 3 buttons that you use. The length of game, the variation on all of the different levels, the difficulty it presents with as well. It doesn't just go, oh, this is a kid's game for you, you know what I mean? And there is a modicum of a story to it as well, as in actually where you do emotionally kind of get attached to these little Loco Rocos you're trying to get around the level, and these Muja aliens are eating it, and you're like, fuck off, I've just collected that, it took ages. That has that arcade effect of the feeling that I just kind of had a little bit with Outrun, just specifically to the PSP though. And I think that's probably where I think I probably have to end it, that I'm happy for it to be very high up, but it was a very specific console thought and feeling process for me. So is that enough to win it the game of 10 out of 10 of the year for us? Could be. I highly doubt it. I think that you'll be battling me harder than that, and also the other combatants will have their say too. So the other ones in Castlevania the Night, hold your thoughts.
I can do that.
Let's hear very quickly from Paddy Gunn, who reviewed Championship Manager 0102 on the PC as a 10 out of 10 game, and James Hakers, who James Hakers, I always call him James Hakers, who reviewed Monkey Island. Is it?
Yeah,
just Monkey Island.
The first one was just Monkey Island.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Monkey Island, 10 out of 10, and that would have been PC as well.
No,
the first Monkey Island.
The first Monkey Island games.
And we'll hear from them now.
Hey boys, Paddy here live from Switzerland, coming to tell you why Championship Manager 0102 deserves to be number 1 on your 10 out of 10 list this year. It's because it is the perfect blend of in-depth football knowledge and the simplicity that Championship Manager Football Manager was supposed to be played with, basically a massive spreadsheet, which I know you guys will appreciate. And hopefully, though he hasn't confirmed it quite yet, I converted Rich to a Championship Manager lover. Let me know, Rich. I need to know about your game.
Right, you've given me 1 minute for this, so I'll be quick. Even without my own nostalgia for the series, Monkey Island is the clear and obvious winner. It's got puzzles, humor, locations, and characters that still stand up today. It created a world that is exciting, exotic, spooky, with a sprinkling of adventure, which is not easily done. It was groundbreaking on its release, which shouldn't be overlooked, but at the same time, it'd be easy to run through games from that era where they were groundbreaking, but there are very, very few from that era that you could stand to play in their original form. So this one is a true gem that's going to be played and talked about for years and years to come. It's also a linear story-based game that I'd be willing to replay, and that is vanishingly rare. I've just looked over the list of the other shower that you've selected, and just very quickly, so Loco Roco, never heard of that. I assume it's a typo, and Sunset walked over the keyboard. If you Google it, it just looks like AI was asked to draw a picture of Slender Man in the style of a Saturday morning CBeebies cartoon, so I guess I'm safe to skip that one. Castlevania Symphony of Destruction is just the Megadeth to Mega Man's Metallica. You only prefer it if you're a broody, angsty hipster. And as for Championship Accountancy Sim 0102, I mean, I'm as grateful as the next person that a whole generation of kids learned to use Microsoft Excel well, but it's also responsible for the monstrosity of useless stats that's killing the modern game of football. And I'm pretty sure the ability to hit pause and go for a haircut is what resulted in VAR being introduced. So surely there's at least 4 points off for the negative cultural influence. And happy Christmas and good luck in choosing Monkey Island.
Thanks for that, guys. So we are back now in the pod booth that is Rich's spare room. And, some really pertinent points put forward by the boys there. My personal thoughts and feelings on those. As always, Paddy and Hake is very eloquent. I think that out of both of those games, I feel like, the one that I would enjoy the most would be Monkey Island, and I think I even sent a Monkey Island meme the other night to you and Hake.
Oh yeah, you did, yeah.
Sort of like, I love Championship Manager, don't get me wrong, and obviously I showed that when I talk about Football Manager in the PSP in 8 out of 10 category zone, but if I was going to say any of those out of those two would be probably the Monkey Island, and what it felt like it did for gaming. It does feel a bit seminal in a way. That LucasArts sort of feeling. So, come on then, Rich.
My
wowers
rebuttal.
with how are you going to tell us that Castlevania Symphony of the Night is the best 10 out of 10 game that we've played this year?
All right. Well, first of all, I like Paddy said, I'll go on to Championship Manager first because Paddy was absolutely right. Like we've had a couple of football management games in this list that we've kind of glossed over and all that kind of thing. Paddy came on, talked about Championship Manager 01, 02, and I went and bought it off the back of it. Are you spotting the theme here?
Yeah, it's worrisome.
Well, it's a good way of discovering these things. And he was absolutely right about Championship Manager. That one, because it strikes that perfect balance between the sort of simplicity of some of the early stuff in the genre and the depth that you would get nowadays without being too bloated and cumbersome, and that's a fine balance to strike. And the fact that they struck it over 20 years ago, I think is quite telling.
Struck that ball purely.
Yeah, and it's great, and I've gone in, I've taken over the running of Reading, and it's going as well as it is in real life at the moment,
fair enough,
which is abysmal.
Probably better.
It's absolutely kicking my teeth in, and but it's great because it does so much with so little, and it really pulls you into the nitty gritty of it, and suddenly you're sitting there going, oh shit, well if I can't afford XYZ, can I get anybody in for nothing from Luxembourg or whatever? And then you spend ages just trawling through the stuff,
the loans and the free transfer market,
just to see who you can poach. And it never works because they turn around and go who's Reading and all that.
Who's Luxembourg?
So I previously I had played. There was a football management game on the Mega Drive that ended up on Evercade as well, from about 1997, I think, Premier Manager or something like that, which was a favourite of mine because you could customise the adverts on the boards around the pitch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, nice, yeah.
So I really enjoyed that one.
I forgot about that feature. That was wonderful.
But this Championship Manager has definitely overtaken that, right? It does so much right. I understand the hype. Monkey Island, similarly, Hakers again was absolutely bang on the money with the characters, the story. It does some interesting mechanical stuff like the sword fights that stand the test of time, like you said about the meme and all that kind of stuff. It's unusual. Seems like it's kind of too twee a word for it, but even in the realm of point and click, it still has its own vibe. It does its own thing, and that's. Again, like with Championship Manager and striking that balance, it's a difficult thing to do. However, Castlevania is just one of my biggest light bulb moments of this odyssey that we've been on. Like you said about Outrun. I have a similar kind of relationship with Castlevania, it would
Okay.
appear nowadays. And like the artwork is intoxicating. There's mechanical depth for days. Talking about Monkey Island and sending that meme, Castlevania has a fair few memes of its own with its what is a man kind of schlocky dialogue. Also, I note Haker's point about it being for broody, angsty hipsters. I am a broody, angsty hipster, so job done.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking seminal, that it has helped lend half of its name to the name of a genre.
Yeah, it has done that.
Now, granted that arguably that genre could just be a variation of platforming or a variation of adventure or a variation of XYZ. Nonetheless,
To do that.
it has entered into common gaming parlance, and it has earned that right. It's been influential for in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways since.
Yeah.
And I think there's got to be something to be said for that.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably my trump card. If you're talking about what each of these games has brought to the table, only one of them has part of a subgenre named after it.
It does. I mean, so while she was forming that sentence, I was thinking, that is true. But then I also think there's a lot of impact from Monkey Island and Championship Manager, like in terms of the.
Granted, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they
Yeah.
feel very impactful. Like,
Yeah,
and that's probably where I bow out. I mean, I bowed out a while ago, but the Loco Roco sort of argument that definitely bows out. That is a personal favourite. It is not a. All these three other games feel like it's a personal favourite, a real true love, but also for everybody. Do you know what I mean? That is in so.
they're popular picks. Like,
Yes.
everybody goes to them for a reason.
Yeah.
And I understand why this is the case.
But none of these games are AAA, and originally like AAA sort of games in terms of like, I guess,
Like development budgets. And
yeah,
team
do you know what I mean?
sizes.
Like, as in, so they're not like, like populist picks. They're like just like people truly love them.
That's an interesting way of putting it, because I'm glad you said the populist pick, because it's not like anybody set out to make, something that will appeal to XYZ demographics and all that kind of stuff, and have that kind of laser focused hype. I mean, look at GTA 6 and all that kind of stuff, and how it
Oh, I'll look at it.
yeah, but it feels like it's been laser focused to be looked at.
Yeah.
Whereas the 4 games we've got here feel like labours of love first and foremost, and successful commercial products as a happy byproduct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I can't dispute the impact of any of them, really. I would possibly argue that Monkey Island is up there with Castlevania. Is it more impactful? I think you'd be well within your rights to argue that it was. What am I going to pick?
Well, I mean, but I'm not like going to force you to into any decision. We both have to pick, but for me, like you say, those two definitely stand out from the other two. Championship Manager being a very honourable third, I think, in that. I don't think that just because it's our podcast that we're going to be like, well, you should pick yours. But the description of a light bulb moment is very important to me, as it was when we picked Outrun in the 9 out of 10 category. And I'm not saying that Hakers doesn't have that for Monkey Island at the time. It did sound like when he reviewed it, he did. I just feel like there's something about coming to it this age, even though you've played dabbled with it a little bit before.
Yeah.
Like, as in, and then thinking, wow, like, as in, I'm playing a game from 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, even.
I was going to say, like 1997.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and having that now, and we're talking about the scores we're giving these games now, Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like it's really had an impact on you this year, and it's been partly, obviously, like you said.
You know what? I honestly hadn't considered that, but you're absolutely right, because I had no nostalgia for Symphony of the Night. You know, Monkey Island, I played that quite a while back now. Like, and I understand the appeal. I understand the hype. I really enjoyed it myself, and I think of the 4 games, that's the one that could have a shot at usurping Castlevania in my head and heart. But Castlevania, I maybe bought it the first time a couple of years ago, but hadn't played it with any real intent until this year. And it was this year that I got it. It clicked. And I've played other Castlevanias before, but not that one.
Yeah. The one.
Yeah, the seminal one, arguably. So I'm comically close to picking Monkey Island, but and Hakers, if you're listening, I am honestly very, very close.
He looks very pained.
But
concerned about his bowel movements right now.
But I am going to pick Castlevania.
Yeah, and I would say if I'm thinking about. I'm jealous that you guys have these games and these feelings about these games, but I'm mostly jealous that I don't think I'll ever connect with a Metroidvania game like you have with Castlevania. I'm not saying I'm not going to try to. It's just not necessarily my genre, but you've definitely made it like very clear how good it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad, and I think that's another point in its favor for me, because it's from a genre subgenre that I never usually gravitate towards. Like you've listened to me rabbit on enough. I like arcade stuff. I like quick fixes. I like short gameplay loops and all that kind of stuff. This is anything but.
Yeah.
And yet I can see the appeal and see how good it is. And I think that speaks volumes.
Great. Wonderful. Wow. I thought we did a really good job of that. Like, I know it took a while to get there, but I mean, like, that list there. So let's just talk it through again. I know we've been from sort of 0 to 6 already, but Paratopic at 0, Sims 2 at 1 out of 10, Ridge Racer Vita at 2 out of 10, Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified from the Vita 3 out of 10, Sega Mega Drive Collection PSP on the Vita 4 out of 10, Lion King on the Sega Mega Drive at 5 out of 10, Overboard on the PlayStation 1 at 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 Pokemon Yellow, 8 out of 10 Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. How odd is it that we're saying that above Pokemon Yellow? But it definitely is correct. It's definitely right.
I just like how little PSP and Vita stuff is in this.
That's fine.
List.
We'll probably have to live with that
Mega
later.
Drive.
Yeah, 9 Outrun. And don't get me wrong, Outrun played on the Switch though as well. That is in which the Sega ages. And something I didn't point out before previously as well, which necessarily was like, like I can do a rewind function and things like that. It makes it even more accessible from an arcade point of view as well, that version, which is great. And then 10 out of 10, the best 10 out of 10 game that we've reviewed this year, Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation 1.
I'll live with that.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, I mean, I really, really enjoyed that conversation. The last 2 podcasts have been absolutely fantastic, and they've been pure gaming love from us, and we hope you feel the same way about that too. So we're going to take a quick break over Christmas. So next time we would normally be recording our podcast would be Christmas Day. We might pump out something dead quick maybe over Christmas just to say hello. And then we're going to be back at the start of January talking about Final Fantasy and some of the Final Fantasy games that certainly for me I've not played necessarily a lot before off different consoles. So yeah, we need to take a little bit of time to play those over Christmas, I think. So, but thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episodes, and we hope you've had a wonderful 2023, and we'll speak to you maybe over Christmas, if not in 2024.
Cheers.
Right.